Lloyd Begley. I'm the museum curator. Come on in.
Hello, welcome. My name is Gordon Barnhart, and I am the Lieutenant Governor of Saskatchewan. I'm sitting behind an early 20th century mahogany desk in the study at Government House in Regina. Saskatchewan has always been a place of big dreams and larger-than-life characters. These remarkable people have played out those dreams on a vast prairie canvas. Today, I invite you to enjoy a new television series with the unique name, Yes, Gargoyles Do Live in Saskatchewan. The Architectural Heritage Society of Saskatchewan is the sponsor of this exciting series. Each year, I collaborate with the Society to present awards of excellence in architectural heritage. This series furthers the goals of the awards to stimulate interest in our history, to preserve meaningful places, and to educate our citizens. This series will take you to Saskatchewan cities, towns, villages, and the surrounding countryside. You will meet Saskatchewan people and hear their stories about the history, folklore, and built heritage of our beautiful province. I have always taken great interest in Saskatchewan's heritage, including this magnificent vice-regal house and our impressive legislative building. Join me today to discover the rich history of our province. You will experience a fascinating tapestry of stories woven together by Saskatchewan's people. I invite you to sit back, watch, and enjoy. And you know what? Gargoyles do live in Saskatchewan.
Welcome to this episode of Yes, Gargoyles Do Live in Saskatchewan. In this episode, you'll see a prairie lighthouse, not on the water, but full of water. And then come with us as we take you out to an old homestead site and listen in as an archaeologist explains her work. And finally, you will hear how the little prairie town of Wilcox had its own university, starting way back in the 30s.
Morning, I'm Norm Doer in Humboldt, Saskatchewan here, just outside the Humboldt Water Tower, Humboldt's historic water tower. I'm the person responsible, I suppose, for saving this structure back in 1996. This tower was built back in 1914-15, and it was used as a water reservoir until 1977. And at that point, it was abandoned, and up until 1996, and in that intervening time, it had become home to hundreds of pigeons. But it's when I saw the article in the paper telling that the council had decided to destroy the tower, I went on a bit of a rampage and actually started by going to the people at the museum and saying, did you see they're going to burn down the water tower? What are you going to do about it? And they turned to me and they said, what are you going to do about it? And that was the beginning of the story. So I called a town meeting, and that's where it all started. We formed a committee and have been working since then on, first of all, saving the tower from demolition, and then the restoration process, which has gone on off and on ever since. And now you see, of course, before you that the exterior has been virtually rebuilt. It's we had to strip off all the siding, and about a third of the siding had to be replaced with new cedar siding. You can see it's covered with cedar horizontal siding all the way up. The bottom 12 feet is vertical siding. There are two decorative strips, 12 feet up and 40 feet up. And there are windows. The tower was engineered, designed by a Toronto engineering company called Chipman and Powers. They designed, it's a coastal lighthouse design, and I'm not sure why it was chosen for the prairies, but there were 11 of these built in Saskatchewan. Only 4 still remain. The plan was, of course, to originally to soften all the water, because there were water softeners put in here, to soften all the water for the town. But that proved to be totally impractical. I think I was told once upon a time that it was only used for about 6 months, and then it was abandoned. The original entrance, as you pass through this doorway, you'll be passing through the original entrance to the tower, built 1914-15. The walls of the tank themselves are 5/8 of an inch thick on the bottom. They taper to about 1/4 of an inch near the top. Originally, the tower was painted a dark brown color with beige colored trim. I suppose they found that was perhaps not, it faded too much in the sunlight. And here you see some of the original architectural engineering drawings of the tower itself, the construction. Here is the tunnel, showing the tunnel of Humboldt to access, and actually when you reach the end of the tunnel, you're directly under the water tower itself, and this shows where the input and the outflow pipes in the tunnel itself were. And over here is a model of the tower that Dan Steiner constructed. Here you see the gauge, which would show the amount of water in the tank, the number of feet, up to 80 feet, and the amount of water that was used every day. And you can see what the condition of the tower was prior to our restoration work, and the cocoon that the construction crew, Mike LaBelle of Western Restorations from Manola, Manitoba, did as they moved down the tower. The only access to the tunnel was a little trap door there in the floor of the office. And we're moving down into the tunnel of Humboldt. You'll see the pipe here, the rusted pipe. I believe that was the pipe that brought in water from Stony Lake or Humboldt Lake, which was the original source of water, the water supply for Humboldt. I believe in about 1924, the town received permission from the CN to access their water supply at Burton Lake, and it switched over to Burton Lake at that time. The crew, the construction crew, when they were working here, and I'm not sure if they were just pulling my leg or what, but one of the fellows said that they had a radio playing up on top, and they'd come down here to eat their lunch, and suddenly the radio would shut off up there, just by itself. And the one fellow said to me, he said, "I think there's a ghost in the tower." My brother-in-law, who's done a lot of work on the stairs here, he says that sometimes when he's working on the stairs all by himself, he said there are strange noises in the tower. Actually, there's a story told about how at one time, and this was the city crew, when they went up above the tank, the floor of the tank or the top of the tank, and they found there an old blanket, a signal lantern, some Ritz crackers, and they realized that someone, in fact, and a broken window, so they realized someone had been actually living on top of the tank for a while. There's no idea as to who it was or anything like that, or who this person was. The windows are interesting that were put in the side of the tank because they spiral to the top, suggesting an interior spiral staircase. Humboldt's little lighthouse on the prairie, which stood as a beacon for all the pioneers here and served as Humboldt's a water supply source of the water for up from 1914-15 when the tower was completed until 1977 when it was abandoned. And now, of course, it is in the process of restoration. It'll be quite, I think, quite a tourist attraction. It is already, because we have tours here every every Saturday and Sunday during the summer months, and we do get many visitors who come by and who are quite impressed with the structure and the work that has been done here.
And I'm an archaeologist. I work for Stantec Consulting out of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And what we'd like to show you today is a little bit about how we do archaeology in the field. So we're going to go out and have a look at a homestead site that's actually quite close to Saskatoon. Maybe okay with hopping over the fence here.
Proverbial barbed wire.
So this was for the Meewasin Valley Authority. They were just pasturing some animals out here, and this is their north swale, and they found a depression with a whole bunch of historic garbage in it. So they called me to come and just have a look at it. They like to kind of clean it up just to make the pasture safe for their animals. So they wanted to know, is this stuff significant? Should we be doing anything with it, or is it okay to clean up? So I just came out and had a quick look and recorded the site and gave them some recommendations for the garbage in the foundation. So this is mainly what I do as an archaeologist, is we survey, we find sites and record them. Sort of on more rare occasions we excavate them as well, but most of what we do is simply finding and avoiding sites, and that's really the best thing for archaeological sites, of course, is not to disturb them. A lot of our clients can move their developments. In Meewasin's case there's no impact anyway, but a lot of our other clients can simply move their developments to avoid destroying archaeological sites. On the rare occasions where they can't and a site has to be destroyed, we elect to destroy it ourselves through a scientific excavation. So we do that part of the time. But most of what we do is finding and recording and avoiding sites. Okay, so this is one of the first things I saw when I came out. It's probably the remains of some kind of paddock, something to do with the farmyard. So as you can see, this row of stones are outlining it here in kind of a nice square. There may have been a brush fence on top of these rocks at one point in time. So you can see some old barbed wire there. There's usually several features that you'll find in an old homestead, in addition to just cellar depressions. Our next stop would typically be then to the archives, where we'd usually pull the homestead record, because someone will have applied for patent on the land, and that will usually tell you when they came out here. It'll usually give you the name and the age of the male occupant of the homestead, and it'll often give you the age, and sometimes if you're lucky, the age and the number of children of the wife and the rest of the family. Usually not a name though, which is too bad. Because I think the main house was over there. I don't think this would have been necessarily the main house, but it does seem to be some kind of substantial building, maybe a dairy or some other kind of outbuilding, maybe a barracks for a hired hand, something like that. And you can see the outlines of the old foundation stones. Yeah, it's quite neat. It was really nice to see early in the morning, because the light makes all the stones and all the features just really stand out. So up here's our house foundation. There's another foundation, another depression over there, and another one over here. The fact that there's so much on this site also makes me think that it's post-turn of the century. So here's probably the old house foundation. And these are just undressed field stones and a concrete foundation. So this would have been the base that they would have put basically the rest of the house on. Now the way to learn more is to go more in depth archaeologically. So if we wanted to learn, right now we're just sort of recording this site, but if we wanted to know more, we would dig test holes. That might give us some artifacts. It would tell us what the functions of the buildings were, and of course we'd do a little more archival work as well, and then we'd have a better sense of who might have lived here. So we've got quite a big depression here. This may have been the barn. There's a couple, I think Mewasin's been working on kind of cleaning up some of the more dangerous debris, so they've got a few things pulled out. We've got an old tricycle here. That's kind of neat. With this stuff here, the problem with things that are just dumped in a foundation after the house has been abandoned, it's hard to be 100% sure where they came from. So with all of this stuff here, we'd probably just let Mewasin clean it up. And what we'd really be interested in would be anything that's buried under the ground that we know is sealed and actually for sure could be connected with the people that lived here. This is kind of neat. It's a bottle, but it's made of, you can see the glass is purple. So it's purple because it has manganese in it. So before the First World War, manganese was used to make glass clear. And of course, when it gets exposed to ultraviolet light, it turns purple. So given the vagaries of use and reuse of glass, probably anything you find that's purple dates to pre-1925. It says Laurentian. I'm trying to think, and it does have, it's a cup bottom. It's fully machine made. So it's pre-1925, but it's not, it's post turn of the century for sure. So it's actually quite a tightly datable artifact. We can tell it's fully machine made just because of the mold seams. With a machine manufacturer, you would get, first you'd get fully hand blown glass bottles, and then you would move to bottles that have been made in a mold, but the lips and rims would have been hand finished yet. And this one's fully machine made, so we know it's a little bit of a younger artifact. Well, basically what I would do to record this site is I would use GPS to record the locations of all of the different features. I'd also probably use a compass to record the orientations of the buildings. I would measure the dimensions of all the buildings, and so I'd use that to build a nice sketch map of the whole area. So we'd have that kind of information. If I went to the homestead records and found out who lived here and when they first built the house, how long they lived here for, we'd include that kind of information. And then in typical archaeological reports, we have a fair bit of background information just about the landscape, the local history, and that sort of thing. It's fairly rare to have a homestead preserved so close to Saskatoon just because it's so heavily cultivated everywhere else. So a homestead this close to Saskatoon really is kind of a valuable resource in terms of Saskatoon history. I'm pretty sure it's post-turn of the last century, but I would really have to go to the homestead records to find out for sure.
When was homesteading done around here? 1880s, 1890s?
I think I've seen records or applications up into the 30s, so it actually does go for quite a while. But there's a large boom right around the turn of the century, up till the beginning of the First World War, and then, yeah. The main thing is that this being so close to Saskatoon and yet a preserved homestead, it makes it quite a valuable heritage resource. So it's quite an interesting little site. It'd be interesting to find out more about who lived here.
Terry O'Malley, I'm the former past president of Notre Dame College, and we're coming to a landmark here in Wilcox, Saskatchewan called Lane Hall, where Athol Murray developed his liberal arts program in the midst of the Depression to keep young lads active till the cycle changed, and he changed lives, and he changed the world, and he changed this little town of Wilcox as well. As we move inside the building, we're going to meet librarian Jim Williams, who not only he's been here 51 years, but not only is the custodian of the books here in this building, but also was taught here by Athol Murray. And he's going to tell you a little bit about this heritage building that we have here in Wilcox, Saskatchewan at Notre Dame.
This first part of the building here was an Imperial Bank, or the Bank of Commerce, built in around 1910. And there is the original vault right there. And when I came here, Per lived in this one office here. This was his house. He lived in this one room. Per had a little desk over here. He had a little couch over here and mounds of stuff all over the place. And this is where he lived.
And this is where Athol Murray, this was his typewriter where he used to pound out letters. I followed his schedule. I did a thesis on Athol Murray and his college, an MA thesis in history. And Athol Murray's habit, he used to get up at 6 in the morning and he'd listen to the news. He'd hear the 6 o'clock news and then he'd pound away in his typewriter. He'd be writing prime ministers. And here, this is a letter from the rector. Okay, that's a letter from the rector. Here's a letter, R.B. Bennett. R.B. Bennett, the Prime Minister of Canada in the 30s, he'd write R.B. Bennett and tell him how to run the country. And R.B. Bennett so appreciated it. As a matter of fact, there's a letter